SPAR International 2011 kicked off this morning with Brian Mathews from Autodesk and David Lafferty from BP. And the two of them put forth a number of new ideas and new technologies that can be used in everyday operations. So we asked some of our attendees, how are they going to apply some of these technologies to what they use on a day-to-day basis? What did you hear in the keynote address, whether it was from Brian Mathews or from David Lafferty, that got you excited about what you do in your day-to-day life?
For me, the information that Brian put forward, where they're taking existing technologies that have been used in the computer games and using that into 3D imaging and modeling and developing something completely new, and how that can flow into other applications, talking about buildings and optimizing those, so that potentially we could use something like that to optimize how we're designing plants and construction projects.
Now, David at BP, seemed like he had a great team that could really advocate technology up the food chain. Do you guys have something similar like that at ExxonMobil?
We are looking at different things, and the interesting thing that he talked about was the push-pull, because what we find in a lot of times organizations, the resistance is more in the middle, it's not at either end, and trying to get both things working at the same time.
Which of these technologies that you heard Brian Mathews talk about in his keynote do you think might be applicable to what you do in everyday life?
Well, I think the biggest one that I heard him speak about, and certain things that I've talked about in the past, really had to do more about the intersection between the virtual worlds or the immersive environments along with our simulation capabilities, right? So that we could start moving into an augmented reality space. And that's a little bit different. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that. It might be a little bit further out. But I think once it becomes more forefront in our industry, that it's one of those spaces that will really take off.
Do you think there's a particular vertical or particular part of the industry that's particularly ripe for it, that needs this kind of solution?
I actually do, and I think it's a vertical that is just starting to exist. It comes out of the gaming industry, where we're starting to see the intersection between what we would call virtual worlds, or when I was at Chevron, we referred to them as 3D immersive environments, along with the simulation. Right? And that's a vertical that is just starting to come about. And historically, people have looked at these 3D immersive environments more from the 3D CAD perspective. And there's still, some people who don't get that this is a different world and a different way of interacting with your world.
Of all the new technologies that Brian was talking about today, which of those technologies got you excited, and which do you think maybe you can actually use in what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think I think the whole process that Brian was talking about this morning is important, because you have to eventually go from scanning the real world, in the world that we live in, where we're carving a mountain, to Crazy Horse in South Dakota. You have this real physical world, and you need to understand that real physical world to be able to make measurements and understand how things, how parts of the monument relate to the rock itself. And so you have to capture that. You have to be able to work with it and to analyze it, but ultimately you have to be able to take it back to the mountain, because that information isn't any good unless you in fact can take it to the real world, and the guy standing there with a drill, drilling holes for explosives, knows where those holes need to be and why they need to be there. And so in a lot of ways, I think all those aspects that were talked about this morning are all relevant to our world. And we live in a 3D world, whether we like it or not, and we have historically been focused on physical models. And with really this infusion of digital 3D, it's made a significant difference in how we think about how you carve a mountain.
We heard about some very interesting technology with Brian Mathews in his keynote address this morning. What got your juices flowing? What made you think about new and different things that you could do in your day-to-day work?
Well, I thought the application of the printer, being able to print out parts from to manufacture a piece of equipment was quite amazing. I haven't actually seen the technology, but it seems that something that I'd really like to take a look at and get involved in and see how that's going to change the manufacturing base. That seems like that's just huge.
One thing that I found out about just going to the keynote speakers, the geekiest geek of all geeks. I think that was very awesome because it got people really entertained and interested in what was going on, especially with the Xbox Connect, the capabilities of that, as well as what Autodesk is doing, because our school utilizes Autodesk programs, and that's what we carry with their suites and everything. So that's one thing that I find very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the cost of scanning going down, of the resources going down, so that way we can provide more services to our community on the reservation and around the reservation, and to be competitive with various industries. So I think that's one thing that'd be cool.
It seemed to me that the cost of computing is going down to zero. It democratizes computing. How do you see that changing the way that people are using technology on an everyday basis?
Well, I'll use our school, for example. I think that would help our tribe understand the importance of having scanned data, when it comes to buildings, old buildings, historic sites, as well as preserving our heritage. That's something that we could see in the future, and see things going further and further down the road. And as long as there's people on board that are willing to see what the technologies are capable of doing, it would be great for our school and for our tribe to work and do contracts.